the end of the serendipity experiment. They come in threes. One that seems to be created by the individual who is practicing the experiment. Then there seems to be one that comes from another source, generally somebody you know, as confirmation that that wave of serendipity is coming in the future, and you can connect to that. But you are given the open-ended imagination of speculating what you think it might be based on the signals that you are receiving in the present, right? So you come to find out is your imagination has a limitation, and serendipity shows up. It is beyond your ability to imagine it or duplicate it using the original design and observational process. Therefore, it has many implications, many new concepts and explorations in which we can perform in order to go deeper into this beyond imagination. Because when the serendipity shows up, which is the third and final action to the experiment, right? Again, the first being you as an individual, the second being somebody you know or somebody who influences you in some way. For example, I know that when I was originally piloting the serendipity experiment, the serendipity experiment was based off of pirate. And what happened was I built it out of pirate. I had somebody very close to me, somebody who influences me, mention that the pirates won. So there's the confirmation on the second aspect in the serendipity experiment. And the third is, how is that going to manifest in reality, right? What level of the experiment are we actually dealing with here, so we can judge how much influence this experiment really has based on the feedback the aggregate world is signaling and displaying in front of you. And then all of a sudden, pirate shows up in the news all over the place with things that I don't want to discuss publicly. But if you are a student of elemental hypertech, then you know very well where we are and what we're doing. So that's part of the experiment in which I've experienced. I like to ask if anything happened to you. What's interesting too is the serendipity experiment actually was technically 3 experiments in one, because you have to perform multiple experiments in order to find out if it really is, if it's an anomaly or if it really is serendipity. So as you perform those other experiments, the same thing should happen over and over and over again, and they do. But there's that one experiment in which you do the same thing over and over again, but something different happens. And because it's beyond your imagination, like if it skipped a beat and the traditional and ordinary rules of cause and effect were redirected somehow from some unknown source that was mysterious, yet strangely familiar. You're able to witness it in some way, and then curiosity connects you to that. And you analyze it and wonder, and noodle, pry, tickle. You do all these things to it because it's something beyond your understanding. So, I hope that you enjoyed the serendipity experiment. I know that a lot of information wasn't released on this experiment, but that's okay. This is just basic training. There is much more information to share, much deeper to go. The plates that you see are hyperdimensional. You can move them around, you can exchange and move the elements themselves. So each one of the experiments, so we're on the 6th experiment, which is Serendipity. The 5th was the world's first time travel game. The 4th experiment was the private experiment, which is the element of earth, form and substance, matter, the body, right? The 3rd experiment was the echo experiment, which is the element of fire, the heart, where your will, your passion, and your desire are. In time travel, this is the ever-present now, the moment. With the echo experiment, we learned a lot about breathing as well. And the great pause, the in-between. Don't forget about that 3rd aspect, right? There is, like on a coin, there is a heads, there's a tails, and there's also a side. So it works like that with breathing. It's the inward breath, the pause, the outward breath, the pause. So there's great power and force there for you to discover. The 2nd experiment was the gut, the element of water, where your feelings and your emotions are, instincts. It is connected to your future in time travel. Having a relationship with your gut connects you to your future self. The 1st experiment was the element of air, and that is the mind. Oh, the experiment is actually called the Lash Factor experiment as the 2nd experiment. The first one is the Trinity experiment, the element of air, the mind. What we learn there is intellect and reason. What are your reasons? Aim and purpose, evidence. Whereas we learned in the Lash Factor experiment, the 2nd one, we learned more about compassion and having a balance between those. We learned further in the Echo experiment, which was the 3rd. And then the 4th, the private experiment, is the encoding and performance and perspiration and the actual act itself being manifested in your life through your direction. And these layers and levels, degrees is another way that people work with them. And another way is, they call them densities, octaves. So there's several words that are designed to capture the actual essence of how the system is put together into a harmony, okay? And with that harmony, there are multiple instruments to create this symphony. We're utilizing those principles within the Serendipity experiment. That way, you can discover discord, if it exists, and again, harmony, simulation, like all these different concepts, memory, you have access to it. So the teachings of time travel are all built within this channel, right? Channel is another important word. So as we have built this, there is a time component put into this. And for the understanding here is time is simply the cadence and the filing system in which you find things. So if it's a filing system in which you know where you've left it, you know where to find it again, we all have an agreement that says, yes, this is when this happened, this is when this happened. So we can all experience that in a way, in the great aggregate system, that we can all agree that this is exactly what took place. These are the actions that happened. Then you have cause and effect. So time can also be the degree of change that happened from one state to another state. And it's the recording of that change of state, or what we would commonly refer to as movement or action. So to finish off the serendipity experiment, what you are looking for is something unique, something genuine, novel, previously unknown, something to wow you, to spur curiosity, because an event, an action, something took place that has completely changed the way you look at things, because it was so unique, so different. It's like the ancient stories of the phoenix, or the unicorn, right? Or the dragon, the mysteries themselves. On your travels, on your journey, when you are exploring, discovering new things, look for something new.